The sound of the door slamming echoed through the house, and my heart sank into my stomach. "You'll never amount to anything without my name," my father's harsh words echoed in my ears as he stood in front of me, dismissing every achievement I had worked for. My hands trembled, clutching the award I had just been handed, a prestigious global honor for innovative design. The world recognized my talent, my hard work, but he refused to see it. That moment broke something in me. The one person I had spent my entire life trying to impress, the one person whose approval I craved, had just ripped my soul apart. I stood there, my vision blurring with tears I refused to shed, as my father's words cut deeper than any physical wound could. His face was cold, unmoved by the trophy in my hands. But in that moment, staring at his dismissive expression, I realized something: I no longer needed his approval. My name is Ava West, and I would make it on my own. I left that house with nothing but the clothes on my back and a burning determination to prove him wrong. My suitcase held 3 dresses, 2 pairs of shoes, and my design portfolio, everything I truly owned that mattered. The mansion I'd grown up in disappeared in the rearview mirror as I drove toward the city in my old sedan, the only possession my father hadn't bought for me. I found a cramped studio apartment in a questionable neighborhood, where the walls were paper-thin and the pipes groaned at night. My bed was a mattress on the floor. My desk was a folding table from a second-hand store. But it was mine. I started working at a local design studio the next week, answering phones and making coffee for designers who barely acknowledged my existence. The pay was terrible, barely covering rent and groceries. But every morning, I woke up knowing I was building something real, something that belonged only to me. My first rejection came from Sterling Design House, the most prestigious firm in the industry. I had submitted my portfolio with shaking hands, hoping my work would speak louder than my lack of connections. The response arrived 3 weeks later, a generic email thanking me for my interest but informing me they were pursuing other candidates. I read it 5 times, each word feeling like a small defeat. That night, I sat on my mattress and stared at my designs spread across the floor. Were they not good enough? Was my father right? The doubt crept in like poison, whispering that I was foolish to think I could succeed without the West name opening doors. I wanted to call him, to admit defeat and crawl back to the family business. Instead, I picked up my pencil and started sketching. Failure wasn't an option. I had already lost everything, I had nothing left to lose by trying. I started designing for smaller brands under the pseudonym West, close enough to my real name but distant enough to avoid immediate association with my father's empire. A boutique clothing store hired me to create their summer collection. The pay was modest, but seeing my designs on actual people walking down the street filled me with a pride I'd never experienced before. Another small brand followed, then another. My work began gaining quiet attention in local fashion circles. People talked about the fresh perspective, the unique aesthetic that felt both modern and timeless. But the self-doubt lingered. At night, I still heard my father's voice telling me I was nothing without him. I pushed harder, worked longer hours, survived on instant noodles and black coffee. My apartment became a shrine to my obsession, sketches taped to every wall, fabric samples covering every surface. I was building something, piece by piece, stitch by stitch. Amelia Brooks changed everything. She was an established designer who had made her name without family connections, climbing from nothing to create a respected independent label. She reached out after seeing my work at a small exhibition, her message simple but powerful: your designs speak truth. Let's talk. We met at a coffee shop downtown, and she didn't sugarcoat anything. The industry will chew you up, she warned, stirring her latte. They'll steal your ideas, undercut your prices, and spread rumors about you. But if you're serious, if you're willing to fight, I'll help you navigate this world. Amelia became more than a mentor, she became the first person who believed in me without conditions. She introduced me to fabric suppliers who gave me fair prices, taught me how to protect my designs, and shared the hard lessons she'd learned. For the first time since leaving home, I didn't feel completely alone in this battle. My first major breakthrough came 6 months after meeting Amelia. Luxe Apparel, an up-and-coming brand gaining traction with younger consumers, wanted me to design their entire fall collection. The contract was more money than I'd made in the previous 6 months combined. I signed it with trembling hands, hardly believing this was real. The launch party was held in a trendy warehouse space downtown. I stood in the corner, watching strangers admire my work, touching the fabrics I'd chosen, trying on pieces I'd spent countless nights perfecting. A fashion blogger took photos. A buyer from a department store asked for my contact information. This was what success felt like, but my father's words still haunted me. As I accepted congratulations from Amelia, I realized something bitter: I was proving myself to ghosts. The real test would come when the world knew my full name, when I could no longer hide behind initials and pseudonyms. The viral moment came unexpectedly. A fashion influencer with 3 million followers posted a photo wearing one of my designs, tagging Luxe Apparel and asking about the designer. Within hours, my pseudonym was trending. People loved the design, but when they discovered I was working under initials, speculation exploded. Some praised the mystery. Others accused me of hiding something. Then someone connected the dots. Wait, is A. West related to Marcus West? The Marcus West? The comments section erupted. Accusations flew that I was using my father's connections while pretending to be independent. Hate messages flooded my inbox. Spoiled rich girl playing dress up. She's nothing without daddy's money. Fake independent designer writing on family name. I sat in my tiny apartment, watching my phone light up with notifications, each one more vicious than the last. The irony was crushing: I was being attacked for the very thing I'd walked away from. My father called 3 days after the social media storm began. I stared at his name on my phone screen, my finger hovering over the answer button. I hadn't spoken to him in 8 months. Ava, his voice was smooth, controlled, the same tone he used in business negotiations. I've been following your little adventure. Impressive work for an amateur. The condescension dripped through every word. Come back. Work for West Industries. I'll give you your own division, complete creative control. Your designs under our name, imagine the reach, the resources. My throat tightened. This was what I'd dreamed of hearing for years, my father acknowledging my talent. But the cost was too high. No, I said, surprised by the steadiness in my voice. I'm not coming back. The silence stretched. Then he laughed, cold and sharp. You'll fail without me. You always do. When you're ready to stop playing pretend, call me. He hung up. I sat there, phone pressed to my ear, listening to dead air. My relationship with Tyler ended the following month. We'd been together for 3 years, met in college before everything fell apart with my father. You've changed, he said, packing his things from my apartment. You're obsessed. You barely sleep, you never have time for us anymore. I feel like I'm dating a ghost. I wanted to argue, to explain that I was building something important, something that mattered. But he was right. I had become consumed by my work, by the need to prove myself. Every free moment went into designing, networking, planning my next move. I'm sorry, I whispered, watching him leave. The door closed softly behind him, so different from the slam when I'd left my father's house. I was alone again, but this time it was my choice. That night, I worked until dawn on a new collection, channeling my heartbreak into every sketch, every line. If love was the price of success, I would pay it. The email from Vivian International arrived on a Tuesday morning. I read it 3 times, convinced it was spam or a mistake. They wanted me, specifically me, Ava West, to collaborate on their spring haute couture line. Vivian International was legendary, a brand that dressed celebrities and royalty, that set trends the entire industry followed. This was the opportunity that could launch my career into the stratosphere. But it came with risks. The collaboration would be high-profile, heavily scrutinized. Every design would be picked apart by critics who already doubted me. If I failed, the fall would be spectacular and public. I called Amelia, my voice shaking as I read the email aloud. "Take it," she said without hesitation. "You're ready for this." "And Ava? Stop hiding. Use your full name. Own who you are." That night, I drafted my response accepting the collaboration, signing it with my complete name for the first time, Ava Marie West. Rebecca Cross had been circling my work for months. Another designer around my age, she had family money and industry connections but lacked original vision. When I saw her new collection at Fashion Week, my blood ran cold. The silhouettes, the color palette, the signature asymmetrical neckline I'd pioneered, she'd stolen everything. She hadn't just been inspired by my work, she'd copied it outright, then launched it 2 weeks before my own collection was scheduled to debut. Fashion blogs immediately started comparing our work, with many assuming I had copied her since her collection released first. The betrayal felt like a punch to the gut. I had been careful with my designs, showing them only to trusted partners, but somehow Rebecca had gotten access. Amelia urged me to sue, to make noise, to fight dirty if necessary. But I refused. "Let the work speak for itself," I told her, even as fury burned in my chest. I would rise above this, or I would fall honestly. Money became a brutal problem. 3 projects fell through in the same month, clients got cold feet after the Rebecca Cross scandal, worried about being associated with controversy. My bank account dwindled to double digits. I stopped eating out entirely, survived on rice and whatever vegetables were on sale. The rent was due in a week, and I was $300 short. Pride prevented me from asking Amelia for help. Desperation pushed me to take jobs I'd previously considered beneath me, altering wedding dresses, hemming curtains, designing logos for small businesses. The work was unglamorous and poorly paid, but it kept me afloat. One night, sitting at my folding table with my calculator, adding up expenses versus income, I seriously considered calling my father. He would bail me out. All I had to do was admit defeat. Instead, I picked up a commission for a pet clothing line. It paid terribly and wouldn't help my reputation, but it would cover rent. Success wasn't always glamorous. The article ran in Fashion Forward magazine with the headline, "Who is Ava West? The designer using family name for success." A journalist had connected all the dots, my father's empire, my sudden appearance in the design world, the pseudonym I'd abandoned. The piece portrayed me as a privileged daughter playing at independence while secretly leveraging family connections. It was devastating and wildly inaccurate. My phone exploded with interview requests. Most wanted me to defend myself, to explain, to grovel. Instead, I issued a single statement through my newly hired publicist: I left my family's business to build something of my own. My work speaks for itself. The internet had opinions. Half accused me of using my father's name despite my claims of independence. The other half praised my courage for walking away from wealth. My father's voice echoed in my memory, laughing at my naivety. But beneath the shame and anger, I felt something unexpected: freedom. My secret was out. I had nothing left to hide. The Vivian International collaboration launched to unexpected acclaim. Fashion critics praised the innovative designs, the bold color choices, the way I'd merged classical elegance with modern edge. The collection sold out within 48 hours. Suddenly, my inbox flooded with invitations to fashion shows, to exclusive events, to industry parties I'd only dreamed of attending. I bought a dress for the Metropolitan Fashion Gala, my first major red carpet event. Walking into that ballroom, surrounded by people who'd once ignored me, felt surreal. Photographers called my name. Designers I'd admired for years approached to introduce themselves. This was recognition, real and earned. Yet as I accepted congratulations and clinked champagne glasses with industry leaders, my father's dismissive words played on repeat in my mind. Would this ever be enough? Would I ever truly escape his shadow? A famous fashion editor pulled me aside. "Your father must be so proud," she said. I smiled politely and changed the subject, but the comment haunted me all night. I discovered my father's lies through a journalist friend who'd heard rumors. Marcus West had been telling anyone who'd listened that my success was built on connections he'd provided, on resources from his company, on his name opening doors I couldn't have opened alone. "She's talented, yes," he told a reporter, "but let's not pretend she did this independently. I made some calls, smoothed some paths. That's what fathers do." The rage that filled me was white-hot and clarifying. This was who he really was, someone so insecure that he couldn't let me have my own achievements. He needed to diminish my success to protect his ego. I drafted a response, then deleted it. Then drafted another, more scathing version. Deleted that too. Amelia found me at midnight, still staring at my blank screen. "What are you doing?" she asked. Trying to figure out how to fight this without looking desperate. She sat beside me. "Or you could just keep succeeding. That's the revenge that matters." She was right, but it didn't stop the pain. I took 6 weeks off. Not from designing, I could never truly stop, but from the chaos, the drama, the constant battle for recognition. I rented a small cottage on the coast, brought my sketchbooks, and rediscovered why I'd fallen in love with design in the first place. It wasn't about proving my father wrong anymore. It wasn't about fame or recognition or revenge. It was about creation itself, taking an idea, a vision, and making it real through fabric and thread and careful stitching. I designed a collection for myself, pieces I would never sell, created purely for the joy of creation. The weight I'd been carrying for months started to lift. My father's approval, I realized, was never really what I needed. What I needed was my own approval, my own certainty that I was living authentically. The cottage's walls filled with sketches more honest than anything I'd created before. When I returned to the city, I felt different, lighter, clearer, ready for whatever came next. The International Design Excellence Award nomination arrived while I was unpacking from my coastal retreat. It was one of the industry's highest honors, recognizing innovation and artistic merit. Winners were chosen by a panel of legendary designers, people whose work I'd studied for years. I was nominated alongside designers with decades of experience, people who'd built empires and defined entire eras of fashion. Seeing my name on that list felt impossible. The awards ceremony would be held in Paris in 3 months. Amelia screamed when I called her with the news. "This is it, Ava. This is the moment everything changes." But I felt strangely calm. Whether I won or not, the nomination itself was validation. My work was being recognized at the highest level, evaluated purely on its merit. My father's name hadn't gotten me here, my talent had. Still, I couldn't help wondering if he'd seen the announcement, if somewhere in his cold heart, he felt even a flicker of pride. The family gathering was my cousin's wedding, an event I couldn't avoid without causing more drama. I hadn't seen my father in over a year. He stood near the bar, holding court with other wealthy men, and I felt 15 again, small, invisible, desperate for a crumb of his attention. Our eyes met across the reception hall. He excused himself and walked over, his expression unreadable. "Ava," he said, like my name tasted bitter. "You've been making quite a name for yourself." There was no warmth in his voice, but also no outright hostility. Something in his eyes looked almost like jealousy, though I might have imagined it. "I've been working hard," I replied carefully. "The International Design Excellence nomination, impressive. Though I'm sure you had help getting noticed." The dismissal was subtle but sharp. He couldn't just congratulate me, he had to diminish it, to imply I hadn't earned it. I smiled politely. "I got there on my own, actually. Just like you always said I couldn't." I walked away before he could respond. 2 weeks later, my father went public with his accusations. In an interview with Business Today magazine, he claimed I'd manipulated my way into the fashion world, implied I'd used his name and connections while pretending to be independent, and suggested my success was built on deception rather than talent. "My daughter is talented, but she's also naive," he said. "She doesn't understand how business works. Someone helped her, whether she admits it or not. She didn't do this alone." The article devastated me. Not because I believed his lies, but because he was my father and he was actively trying to destroy what I'd built. Friends and colleagues reached out with support, but the damage was done. Doubt crept into industry conversations. Had I really earned my success? Amelia found me crying in my apartment, the magazine open on my table. "He's scared," she said firmly. "You're succeeding without him, and it terrifies him. This is his fear talking, not truth." Her words helped, but the wounds remained. The exclusive offer came from Prestige Brands, a massive corporation that wanted to buy my label, my name, my complete creative control. They offered enough money to secure my future forever, multiple millions, plus profit sharing. The catch was total exclusivity. I would design for them and only them, work under their corporate structure, answer to their marketing teams. It was everything I'd worked for, packaged in a golden cage. I had 72 hours to decide. Amelia advised against it. "You'll lose yourself," she warned. "You'll become another designer churning out commercial products to hit quarterly targets." But the financial security was tempting. I was tired of struggling, tired of fighting, tired of constantly proving myself. The offer represented safety, stability, success without the constant battle. I thought about my tiny apartment, my folding table, the years of instant noodles and doubt. Then I thought about my coastal cottage sketches, the pure joy of creating without commercial pressure. The decision crystallized. I called Prestige Brands and politely declined. I attended another family gathering 6 months after the magazine interview, this time my grandmother's 80th birthday. My father was there, of course, but something had shifted. When I arrived, he didn't ignore me, he watched me with an expression I couldn't quite read. Later, he approached while I stood alone on the terrace. "Your work with Vivian International was notable," he said stiffly. It wasn't quite praise, but it wasn't dismissal either. "The industry is talking about you. Even my colleagues ask about you." There was something in his voice, not quite pride, but perhaps the beginning of acknowledgement. Yet it felt hollow. I'd spent my whole life craving these words, and now that they were finally coming, they meant nothing. "Thanks," I said simply. We stood in awkward silence. He seemed to want to say more but couldn't find the words. I realized then that I'd already moved beyond needing this moment. His approval had become irrelevant. I'd found validation in my work, in my independence, in becoming someone I respected. The proposal arrived from West Industries with surprising timing, 2 weeks before the International Design Excellence Awards. My father wanted to merge my label with his company, offering me complete creative control of a new luxury division. The money was substantial, the resources unlimited. But the offer came with strings. My designs would carry the West Industries name, and I would report directly to my father as CEO. It was everything I'd once dreamed of, working with my father, being part of the family business, having access to infinite resources. But reading the contract, I felt nothing but sadness. This wasn't about collaboration or family. This was about control, about bringing me back under his authority. He still couldn't accept that I'd succeeded without him. The offer was his way of reclaiming ownership of my achievements. I thought about accepting, about taking the easy path, about finally ending this exhausting battle. Then I remembered why I'd left in the first place. Some prisons are just more comfortable than others. I declined my father's offer in person, meeting him at his downtown office, the place where I'd once begged for his approval. "I'm grateful for the offer," I said, sitting across from his massive desk, "but I'm going to stay independent." His face darkened. "You're making a mistake. The fashion industry is brutal, Ava. You think one award nomination makes you untouchable? You need protection, resources, infrastructure." "I need to be myself," I countered. "That's something I can't do under your company, under your name, under your control." He stood, angry now. "This is about pride. You're sabotaging your career because you're too stubborn to accept help." "No," I said quietly. "This is about knowing my worth. I've built something real, something that belongs to me. I'm not giving that up, not for money, not for security, and not for your approval." The ultimate revenge, I realized walking out of his office, wasn't destroying him or proving him wrong. It was simply succeeding on my own terms, building a life where his opinion no longer mattered. The International Design Excellence Award ceremony in Paris was everything I'd imagined and nothing I'd expected. I wore a dress I'd designed specifically for this night, midnight blue silk with silver threading, elegant but bold. The venue was stunning, filled with the industry's most influential figures. When they announced my category, my hands went numb. The presenter opened the envelope, and time seemed to stop. "The International Design Excellence Award goes to Ava Marie West." The applause roared in my ears as I walked to the stage on shaking legs. The trophy was heavier than I expected, solid and real in my hands. As I looked out at the audience, I saw Amelia crying with joy. And there, near the back, was my father. He'd come. I hadn't known he would be here, hadn't invited him. Our eyes met, and something passed between us, not reconciliation, but perhaps understanding. The program listed all the winners' names beside their achievements. My name, printed in elegant typography, stood on its own merit. Not as Marcus West's daughter. Just as Ava West, designer. It was enough. I left the toxic family dynamics behind, not with drama or grand declarations, but with quiet distance. My father and I spoke occasionally, stilted, formal conversations that acknowledged our relationship without pretending it was something it wasn't. He never apologized for his cruelty, and I stopped expecting him to. I moved into a beautiful apartment with actual furniture and windows that let in sunlight. My label grew steadily, never massive but sustainably successful. I employed 15 people, mentored young designers the way Amelia had mentored me, and created work I was proud of. Sometimes I still heard my father's voice in difficult moments, still felt the old wound ache. But I'd built something real, something no one could take away, not through cruelty, not through dismissal, not through doubt. The award sat on my shelf, catching light from the window. Beside it, I'd placed a photo from that night in Paris, me holding the trophy, genuinely smiling. I'd won on my own terms, carrying only my own name. That was the victory that mattered.